안녕하세요. It's such a pleasure to be here, and this incredible occasion to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the SK Happiness Foundation and the remarkable work that you do, and the people in this room, and the work that you do in the area of social entrepreneurship in this country and beyond. It's just a privilege and an honor. So I am here today to talk about what I see as the future in how large corporations are contributing to social change. And a significant part of that is how they interact with people like you. So they have a lot to learn from what is happening in this room and in this organization. So that's what I'm here to talk about. And I've had the great privilege of the last 16 years of operating Impact Corporation in Toronto and working around the world. And we've had the extraordinary experience of working with many, many large corporations, including Starbucks and 3M and Home Depot and John Deere and Walmart and so on. And I've also had the great experience and honor of writing a lot about the intersection of business and social change for Forbes and the Stanford Social Innovation Review and other publications. And I could honestly say that the time right now, what we've seen in the last year in terms of how businesses can interact with social change and the reasons why it's important for them to pay attention to you is something I've never seen before. So when you have people like an entrepreneur like Richard Branson saying that this is among the most significant opportunities in the world in terms of contributing to business and social change, that means a lot. And so today, what I thought I would talk about is share some examples of some things that I think large corporations are doing extremely well. Talk about some of the ways in which what they are doing is intersecting with the kinds of work that people like you do. And talk about a recipe for success for what I think they need to do differently in order to make a bigger difference in terms of their own profitability as a business and in terms of working with people like you. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience as well. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what isn't working, because I think it's a really important context that we're in right now. Clearly, Volkswagen is sort of epitomizes what I would call a year in 2015 in particular, a year of what I would call corporate irresponsibility. So what we saw, interestingly enough, in spite of all the need for change and the opportunities for businesses to be involved in social change, we saw a global brand such as Volkswagen lying about what they were doing in terms of emission controls. We saw Amazon, an internationally respected organization, was found actually coercing its own white-collar employees to work inappropriately. We found grocery retailers around the world purchasing shrimp that were actually peeled by essentially slave workers in Thailand. So this was making the headlines all over the world at the same time as, on the other hand, I think that we would all agree that as people, we are looking for a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose in our lives that probably we've never had, to that extent, it's never happened before. You have a millennial generation for whom social change is particularly important. And you have a kind of healthy skepticism, I would say, in terms of how people are looking at big businesses, and people who in their own lives and careers are wanting to make a difference. So I find this a very interesting kind of contradiction in terms of the last while. Large corporations such as these iconic global businesses who have disappointed their own consumers, at the same time as people like you and I really wanting to make a difference in a way that we haven't seen before. So, and of course, the efforts of people like you in this room and social entrepreneurs around the world who are starting to get a level of traction in this area which is actually making a difference, I think, beyond what many of the large corporations have been able to do. So I would like to continue with sharing a few examples of things that I think are very, very important. One is right here in this room. So this is the 10th anniversary of the SK Foundation, Happiness Foundation. And leadership is at the forefront. It's the foundation of everything we do in this area. And I would say that the Happiness Foundation has taken a global leadership role in terms of placing a priority on social entrepreneurship that I have never seen in the world. So the ideas here are so important. Number one, that there's a recognition in the Happiness Foundation that it's not about, social change is not going to happen with one-time donations. It doesn't work that way. However, a lot of large corporations in other parts of the world, that's still what they do. And of course, a focus on social entrepreneurship and social innovation and creating the ecosystem really that exists in this room and beyond of people who are coming together to do this work very differently. So I think that's remarkable. Beyond here in Korea, one of the things that I found very exciting in the last while, and we've had the great honor of supporting Starbucks. Starbucks in the United States has started an initiative called the 100,000 Opportunities Initiative. And the goal here is engaging the massive scale of Starbucks in hiring individuals they call opportunity youth. And these are opportunity youth who are people between 18 and 24 years old who do not have access to enough work, enough employment. The goal is to hire 100,000 of these youth by 2018, I believe. And one of the interesting things I find about this example is, in addition to the I would call the social implications and value of employment, is that Howard Schultz himself is an entrepreneur at heart. And Howard Schultz came from a very poor background and understood what the value of employment means. So he has now engaged his entire enterprise in this same thing. And beyond Starbucks, actually, one of the things that I think is also interesting is an example of what I would call a corporation operating in a post-competitive environment. So Starbucks is now working with other competitors, with Walmart, with Target, and with other large companies in the United States to achieve a social goal, which is, I think, so fundamental. They are solving it. They're using their scale to solve a social problem. In Canada, there's a remarkable organization called Telus. Telus is a national communications company, but they have demonstrated remarkable leadership as well, in particular in the area of innovation and technology. So what they've done here, what this example is, Telus Health, is something that's called home health monitoring. And it's really actually quite a simple thing, but it hadn't been done before, where they're able to connect patients with their hospitals, in order to reduce the amount of time that they've spent in the hospital, in order to reduce the amount of readmissions to hospital after people have had surgery. So it's quite simply that a patient has surgery, goes home, and reports in via mobile takes a picture perhaps of their wound, puts their vital statistics in, and it is contributed already to, I think, a reduce of more than 70% of hospital readmissions, and the system savings of that is extraordinary. Now, the thing that's also an interesting example, Telus, large corporation, to do this, they had to acquire basically a startup who had come up with this technology. So it's a really great example of how a large corporation and a social change, social enterprise startup can work together. And Telus has scaled what this small business had done. I love it. Lucky Iron Fish. This is, I'm personally very excited about this. It's actually a Canadian invention as well. So Lucky Iron Fish was started by some young people who live near where I do in Toronto. And Lucky Iron Fish has the potential to solve at a global level iron deficiency among the almost 3.5 billion people around the world who suffer from iron deficiency. And iron deficiency, as you may know, causes anemia. And the social costs of people getting anemia as a result of iron deficiency are estimated to be, I think, more than $3 billion. More than $70 billion of GDP, global GDP. So Lucky Iron Fish works as a small fish that's sold online at a very low cost. And one Lucky Iron Fish can actually reduce iron deficiency in a family for up to, I think, 5 years. And the other interesting thing about this is it's both a opportunity and a challenge to large business. On the challenge side of it, you have large pharmaceutical companies that make anemia medication, and this Lucky Iron Fish has the potential to actually compromise sales of pharmaceutical drugs that are used to treat anemia if they continue to be successful. On the opportunity side, I think it's very interesting because if I were Johnson & Johnson or some of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, you know what? I would be looking at Lucky Iron Fish, and trying to find a way to work together with them. And the opportunity is for people in those large corporations to do their own Lucky Iron Fish or to work with people that are. Here is another exciting example that we've had the pleasure to work with in Canada. It's called the Indian Business Corporation. This actually shows that this kind of work is not new. These people have been doing this for almost 30 years. They've invested almost $80 million in helping what in Canada we call First Nations people, which formerly were called Indian people. That's our first people in Canada to become entrepreneurs. And sadly, these individuals in Canada cannot get capital, loan capital, from our largest banks. Indian Business Corporation steps in to help those people start businesses and is contributing to a huge amount of social and economic change in a way that years of government support actually have not. The other thing that's interesting here is that some of our largest resource corporations are investing in capital in the Indian Business Corporation because they're working in proximity with our First Nations people. There's another thing I'm very excited about. This is something that we at Impact can personally take responsibility for. In the last year, we created something called Higher Up Youth, which is the world's first and I think only job portal to connect youth who've experienced homelessness with employment. It's never been done before, and the interesting thing is that we are connecting some of the largest corporations in the country, including Home Depot, including Walmart, including Nordstrom, and so on, with youth who've experienced homelessness, and doing it in a way which is intended to generate a profit. Higher Up Youth is a social enterprise. It's already scaled all across. We launched in November of last year, and it's already scaled across Canada, and our plan is to take this international. Unilever is often cited as a corporation that's done remarkable work in terms of bringing its business and bringing profitability to its business. I think this is just an incredible example of what's going on in Hindustan, where they are turning local women into health entrepreneurs. And over 65,000 women are now health entrepreneurs. And the company has generated more than $100 million in incremental revenue as a result of this program. The other thing that I just wanted to stress, I all talked about corporations here. This is a great example, I think, of an organization which exists here in Korea as well. Ronald McDonald House comes and is related to McDonald's, but not part of it. It's its own separate charitable organization. But they have demonstrated the ability to create solve a problem, which is that people who've had children who are very sick, who don't live near a hospital, need somewhere to stay. This organization exists, I think, in more than 60 countries around the world, is helping solve that problem, and of course is doing it in a partnership with one of the world's largest companies. And this has been around for a long time too. I think they started in 1976. So what does all this mean as a recipe for success for corporations? What should they be doing differently? What do they need to do differently? How do they need to change? These are the things that I think are most important. As you have demonstrated here at the Happiness Foundation, they need to take leadership. Corporations need to actually say, this is what we're going to do. Here is a social problem that we can help solve. They need to explore and use tech-based solutions as much as possible in order to help scale. They have to use this as a competitive advantage, not just as a sort of sideline to their business. They have to actually mobilize capital in different ways. So right now, large corporations essentially treat their social investments as a cost center. We would say it needs to be a profit center. They need to be more entrepreneurial, which is a challenge. That means moving fast. That's hard in large organizations. And of course, it needs to be profitable. So very quickly, why are we looking at a picture of Bruce Springsteen here on the screen? I'll tell you. A very short story, which meant a lot to me and still does. So in about 1974, I think, a writer named John Landau, who had written a lot about rock and roll for years, but was kind of sort of fed up with it, was uninspired, really didn't know where this industry was going. So he went to see Bruce Springsteen in the Harvard Square Theater in 1974. And the next day, he wrote this article about it, and he said, I saw rock and roll flash before my eyes, and I saw something else. I saw a rock and roll future, and its name is Bruce Springsteen. Well, aside from being a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, I related to this because I felt I experienced this myself in the last year in particular, where we had been involved in what I would call corporate social responsibility past. And in developing higher up, I really felt that I saw social responsibility or business and social change in the future. And I would say the most important thing is the future is right here in this room. So organizations like the Happiness Foundation are enabling the future of social change through entrepreneurs and the people, nonprofit organizations who are here, governments that are here, academic people who are here, and social entrepreneurs themselves are forging a new future that I think is so exciting. But you can also do it by working with corporations. Thank you.